Greetings fellow Decepticons, SoundBlaster1987 here with my monthly vlog for June of 2025. Today I'll go over the history of the most feared dark wizard in the Harry Potter franchise, Thomas Marvolo Riddle The Third, better known to all as Lord Voldemort. Now, I've already reviewed McFarlane Toys figure of Voldemort, which I'll leave in the description down below for those who want to watch the toy review of that figure. So, Voldemort, born under the name Thomas Marvolo Riddle the third Tom Riddle in a row due to his paternal family's tradition of naming, I suppose, was born on New Year's Eve, 1931 if I remember correctly, to Merriby Gaunt of the Sacred 28 Gaunt family and Tom Riddle II of the Muggle-born Riddle family. Because he still had value on his mother's side, Tom Marvolo Riddle ended up joining Slytherin when he attended Hogwarts. But that's jumping the gun a bit. Let's head back to his early childhood. Merriby Gaunt was a member of the pureblood Gaunt family who, like her uncle Ominous Gaunt, the younger brother of her father Marvolo, was a lot less racist and pureblood supremacist than the rest of the bloodline. Ominous was one of the main characters of the Slytherin storyline from the Hogwarts Legacy video game, caused to be blind by his brother Marvolo's misuse of the Cruciatus curse on him as a young child, as far as I can tell. But that's getting off topic. The point is, Merriby specifically wanted to annoy her family and get back at them for being so abusive, which is why she used a love potion to seduce Tom Riddle II in the first place, getting pregnant with his offspring, Tom Riddle III, and of course his middle name Marvolo came from Merriby's father, Marvolo Gaunt. The Gaunt family are a member of the Sacred 28, a list of purebloods from the 1930s that was published by a villain called Cantankerous Knot. I'll get back into the Sacred 28 in another video, because that's another Harry Potter themed video that deserves its own vlog later down the line. But, needless to say, the Gaunt family are direct descendants of Salazar Slytherin, one of the four founders of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It is because of this claim to fame that Voldemort ended up a member of Slytherin himself in his earlier school years. So, because Tom Riddle II wanted nothing to do with his illegitimate son after he found out about the love potion, and Merriby died in childbirth giving birth to Tom Riddle III in the first place, Tom Riddle III ended up stuck in an orphanage for his early childhood years. It was his time in the orphanage that caused Tom Riddle III to realise his potential for magic, using it to set wardrobes on fire and torture the other kids in the orphanage and that kind of thing. This attracted the attention of Albus Dumbledore, who at the time was still a transfiguration teacher at Hogwarts, before having become headmaster later on, since Armando Dippet was still the headmaster of Hogwarts at this time. In the 1945 school year, 16-year-old Tom Riddle ended up opening the Chamber of Secrets, having discovered its hidden entrance in the second-floor girls' bathroom, and he used Parseltongue to command the basilisk within to kill the Muggle-born Ravenclaw student Myrtle Warren, who later became the ghost Moaning Myrtle of that same bathroom later on by Harry's time at the school. However, to cover his tracks, Tom Riddle had framed Rubeus Hagrid's pet Acromantula spider, Aragog, for the attack, causing Hagrid to get expelled from Hogwarts and have his wand destroyed, which is why Hagrid can only use a certain amount of small, limited bursts of magic with that pink umbrella of his later on in life. Dumbledore was always suspicious of Tom Riddle, but he managed to keep this under wraps for the most part for quite a length of time after the Second World War. And then, of course, it was Horace Slughorn who was the potions master and head of Slytherin House at the time that Voldemort was at Hogwarts as a student, so it was Slughorn that told Voldemort about the Horcrux situation and how to create them and such. And of course the first Horcrux that Voldemort made was his own diary, which he would use as a weapon to possess somebody else to reopen the Chamber of Secrets many years later, when the echo of his 16-year-old self trapped within the diary would later possess Ginny Weasley during the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets storyline. But going back to Voldemort himself, he tried numerous times to become the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at the school, turned down at first by Armando Dippet as the former headmaster, and then later by Dumbledore as well when he took over. And as a result of being turned down for the job, Voldemort actually left the school with an absolute curse on the job, saying that no other teacher apart from himself would last more than a year at that job, which sadly ended up being true for quite some years after the fact. Another point about the franchise that I can make another video about later. But during his time at Hogwarts, Tom Riddle also charmed the Grey Lady, the ghost of Helena Ravenclaw, daughter of the Hogwarts founder Rowena Ravenclaw, and managed to locate her mother's hidden diadem tiara in a hollowed-out tree in Albania. He then hid the diadem in the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts during his third failed attempt to get a job there. After leaving Hogwarts, Tom Riddle ended up getting a job at Borgin & Burke's Black Market Wizarding Artifacts and Relics shop at Nocturne Alley, the Dark Wizard's equivalent of Diagon Alley. And during this job, he basically used his handsome looks, charm and charisma to manipulate people into giving up their most cherished possessions. This included a young woman called Hepzibah Smith, who was the direct descendant of Helga Hufflepuff. She had basically got two of the founders' relics at Hogwarts, Slytherin's locket and Hufflepuff's cup. Slytherin's locket initially belonged to Voldemort's own mother, Merriby Gaunt, as it was another inherited family heirloom from the Slytherin line. But apparently, after Merriby's death, it was acquired by Borgin & Burke and then acquired from them by Hepzibah Smith. Voldemort came back a few days later after buying these items, killed Hepzibah, and made another Horcrux out of Hufflepuff's cup as a result. He wanted a more significant murder for Slytherin's locket because of how much the locket meant to him as an icon of his idol, Salazar Slytherin, and obviously his ancestor. But he ended up just killing an Albanian peasant to create this Horcrux. Or was it a homeless muggle, one of the two? I know he made the diadem Horcrux out of a less meaningful murder as well at one point. Then he went back and visited his paternal family home, the Riddle Mansion, killed his muggle father and grandparents, and made another Horcrux out of the signet ring of the Gaunt family, a ring that contains the Resurrection Stone of the Deathly Hallows, something that Voldemort never realised. Voldemort then started hiding these Horcruxes in order to protect them for his own safety, becoming paranoid about death in the process. He hid Slytherin's locket behind a load of cursed traps in a cave that he visited during his time at the orphanage, and he hid Hufflepuff's cup in Bellatrix Lestrange's Gringotts vault of the Gringotts Wizarding Bank. So, after entrusting Bellatrix Lestrange with the Hufflepuff's cup Horcrux, Voldemort entrusted Lucius Malfoy with the Diary Horcrux, which he intended to be used more as a weapon to reopen the Chamber of Secrets than as an actual safeguard for his own protection against his fear of death and whatnot. However, these were not the last Horcruxes Voldemort made. He also put a serious curse on the Gaunt signet ring so that anybody who put it on would end up getting poisoned and turning their entire body black from the hand upwards, which is what happened to Dumbledore in the Half-Blood Prince. Hence the reason why he asked Snape to kill him in the first place, partly to avoid Draco Malfoy having to do so. But anyway, Voldemort went into hiding for about 10 years in the early 70s as he was hiding these Horcruxes. Then he also ended up officially renaming himself as Lord Voldemort publicly instead of Tom Riddle the Third. And I also forgot to mention that during his Hogwarts years, he started a gang of fellow racist Slytherin bullies who later ended up calling themselves the Knights of Walpurgis. This organisation was basically the prototype of what would eventually become the Death Eaters later on. The Knights of Walpurgis included the earliest Death Eater prototypes, including Avery, the most recent members of the Knott family, the Rosier family, and also the fathers of Crabbe and Goyle, Draco Malfoy's minions. Crabbe and Goyle themselves would later become Death Eaters at Draco's command as well in later years, or at least get close to it and then turn back at the last minute anyway. But yes, the next Horcrux for Voldemort made was an accidental one, because he intended to kill the 1-year-old Harry Potter in 1981 after mishearing a prophecy from his double agent minion Severus Snape that tied Harry Potter's destiny to Voldemort as the one who had been destined to bring about the Dark Lord's downfall. Anyway, Harry's mother Lily jumped in the way of the Avada Kedavra that was meant for Harry, sacrificing herself to protect him, which caused the fragment of Voldemort's soul to latch onto Harry in the form of a lightning bolt-shaped scar on his forehead, instead of killing the baby himself. This corruption of Harry's personality by Voldemort's soul fragment through the scar is why the Sorting Hat almost put Harry in Slytherin in the first place, when Harry turned up at Hogwarts 10 years later in 1991. Then, of course, in 1993, after Peter Pettigrew was discovered living in secret as the Weasley family's pet rat, Scabbers, he escaped and rescued what little was left of Voldemort's body after the former Horcrux of Quirinus Quirrell was destroyed 2 years later. He managed to rebuild a sort of rudimentary body for the last soul fragment of Voldemort, and basically cared for this fragile, rudimentary Voldemort body like some kind of deformed infant for another year and a half, until the end of the 1994 school year, where he interfered with the Triwizard Tournament and managed to capture Harry in the Riddle family graveyard, where he managed to use a sacred ritual, or a twisted version thereof at least, to bring back Voldemort in a brand new body, cutting off his own hand in the process and taking a few drops of Harry Potter's blood to seal the deal. This makes Voldemort's new body immune to the sacrifice of loving protection and means Voldemort can't physically touch Harry without hurting himself. This physical contact still hurts Harry through the scar, obviously, but at least it makes Voldemort immune to physical contact with him now, which is how Quirrell died in the first place, through the fact that he can't touch Harry because of Voldemort being stuck to the back of his head. Anyway, during his time in a rudimentary body, Voldemort created his last ever Horcrux, Nagini the Snake. This was done through the torture and murder of a Ministry of Magic employee called Bertha Jorkins, through whose manipulation he discovered the Triwizard Tournament would be taking place at Hogwarts in the presence of Alistair Mad-Eye Moody, overseeing the process. This is where Barty Crouch Jr. comes into things, impersonating Mad-Eye through the use of Polyjuice Potion. This is how Peter Pettigrew, Barty Crouch Jr. and Voldemort ended up concocting a plan to capture Harry in the Triwizard Tournament in the first place. After this point, Voldemort's resurrected body became the new leader of the Death Eaters, causing a mass breakout of Azkaban prison, including Bellatrix Lestrange, Lucius Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, McNair, and several dozen other past minions of Voldemort that ended up escaping justice through the Ministry of Magic by basically claiming they were under the Imperius Curse and therefore not responsible for their actions under Voldemort's control. Although it's hard to tell the liars from the truth-tellers with this situation, some of them, like Lucius Malfoy, did escape Azkaban altogether at one point, but that's beside the point. After his resurrection by Peter Pettigrew, Voldemort didn't realise that the Diary Horcrux had been destroyed at this point, nor did he realise that he even had a Horcrux inside of Harry's scar. All he knew that he was back at more or less full power and ready to conquer the world again. It was after this point that Harry and Dumbledore started setting out to destroy the remaining Horcruxes in order to defeat Voldemort once and for all. The first of these Horcruxes to be destroyed, of course, was the, temporary Horcrux in Quirinus Quirrell, followed by the, Diary Horcrux, which Harry destroyed with the Fang of a Basilisk, because Basilisk Venom is one of the few things that can destroy a Horcrux. And subsequently the Sword of Godric Gryffindor, the last Hogwarts founder relic, unless you count the Sorting Hat, but the Sword of Gryffindor only absorbs that which makes it stronger, and Basilisk Venom made the sword stronger and enabled it to be the perfect weapon against Horcruxes. Ironic as well, since Voldemort wanted to use the sword as another Horcrux himself, who was unable to do so. So, where? The Gaunt ring was destroyed by Dumbledore using the Sword of Gryffindor. Helga Hufflepuff's cup was destroyed by Hermione Granger using a Basilisk Fang. Slytherin's locker was destroyed by Ron Weasley using the Sword of Gryffindor. And the diadem of Ravenclaw was accidentally destroyed by Crabbe Goyle using Fiend Fire in the Room of Requirement, which was just as well because Harry wanted to destroy the diadem anyway, but of course that was an accidental side effect of those two Slytherin bullies, especially since one of them died in the process. And the final Horcrux, Nagini the Snake, was killed by Neville Longbottom using the Sword of Gryffindor during the Battle of Hogwarts. Since Harry had been almost killed by Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest prior to this, the Scar Horcrux was also destroyed, which left Voldemort completely vulnerable to Harry's final attack. After Snape killed Dumbledore at the 1996 school year, Voldemort ended up basically breaking into Dumbledore's tomb to steal the Elder Wand and tried to use that as a new wand after his original wand was destroyed in the previous battles. Unfortunately, the Elder Wand never truly obeyed Voldemort because he believed that it belonged to Snape after Snape killed Dumbledore, so Voldemort had Snape killed by Nagini in order to gain ownership of the wand, but even that didn't work because Draco Malfoy disarmed Dumbledore prior to Snape killing him at the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, which meant that the Elder Wand truly belonged to Harry Potter, since, obviously, Harry managed to disarm Draco in Malfoy Manor, gaining ownership of both Draco's wand and the Elder Wand, which is why Draco Malfoy ended up having to use Narcissus' wand in the, Battle of Hogwarts. So, with all of his Horcruxes destroyed and his rudimentary new body completely volatile as a result of too many soul fragments being lost, Voldemort just completely disintegrated at the end of his final battle with Harry at the end of the Battle of Hogwarts. And that's the end of Voldemort's story in the original timeline. However, the Cursed Child sequel stage play does show that Bellatrix Lestrange was pregnant with Voldemort's daughter Delphine during the events of the Half-Blood Prince storyline. And, of course, that child, Delphine, ended up using a time turner to go back in time and sabotage things, turning Cedric Diggory into a Death Eater and killing Harry Potter and causing all kinds of chaos, which in turn led Voldemort to survive a little bit longer, but I haven't watched The Cursed Child and I need to do more research before I go into more detail of that. So, for now, that concludes my, look back at the, life of Lord Voldemort. I've been SoundBlaster1987, thanks again for watching. My next toy review will be the Mega Construx Ninja Turtles Party Wagon from the 1987 cartoon 30th anniversary Mega Bloks line from 2017. Till then, my next vlog in July will be about the history of the Constructicons from the Transformers franchise to celebrate the release of the '86 Devastator molds. Until then, to all one.